This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, Citizen-Made Radio.
Hello and welcome to this instalment of Emergence News. Let's talk about us for a moment. It's my favourite topic. Here's an intro from Benjamin Creme, the Oracle, about what we're about. He starts with, who are the spiritual hierarchy? They are the masters of wisdom. Together forming the spiritual hierarchy are the custodians of the divine plan for this planet. They have inspired all the great human achievements, working from behind the scenes through their disciples in every field of endeavour. The masters guide and teach, but it is humanity itself responding of its own free will to their stimulus, which creates each new civilization. Today, the masters are returning to the outer world as a group for the first time. So our program's about the emergence of Maitreya and the masters of wisdom into the everyday life of humanity on planet Earth. So, the last program, we talked about the Day of Declaration and how that would look and some of the key experiences that humanity would have. This program is around some of the ideas of how Benjamin Creme and the Masters predict life as it might be after the Day of Declaration. Now, one of the key ingredients of this next stage of evolutionary development for humanity is to give up war. Now, in 1970, a man called Edward Starr wrote a song called War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Oh, war I despise, because it means destruction of innocent lives. And he went on to tell us what bad news war was. And yet we've stuck with it. We've stuck with war and all of its problems and all of its issues. It is the biggest business on planet Earth. However, we live in a solar system with a benign cooperative confederation of space brothers. Once we give up war, we can then join this confederation and begin to receive the benefits of technology and information that will greatly carry us forward. The technology of light, for instance, unlimited free power. However, we will not receive this and other technologies until we give up our addiction to violence and war. Can you imagine what would happen if the Space Brothers released the technology of light onto our planet now? The countries, whose names start with G and end with an 8, would fight over it, grab it, monopolise it, weaponise it. War would continue, suffering would continue, destruction of the planet and its systems would continue. So really, what happens when we give up war? All right, with me today in the studio is Shafia.
Hello.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Snapshot of what you've got for us.
I'm looking in sort of after the Day of Declaration, a little bit more in depth.
Okay, and Peter, welcome.
Hello, John.
What have you got for us?
Yes, well, I'm going to just carry on a little bit further from your introduction to the energies of light.
Fabulous. So, our synopsis is, once we give up war, once we start sharing the planetary resources, once we start acknowledging our relationship with each other, it will open up a Pandora's box of things that'll help us move forward. Shafia and Peter are going to discuss those things with us. We'll come back to Shafia in a minute. Okay, thank you very much. We've just been communicating with our producer. You know, I love when I talk to my friends, I love telling them I've got a producer.
Yes.
Sounds really cool, doesn't it? Shafia,
It does, yes.
bring us back to Earth, please.
Okay. Well, on our last programme on the Day of Declaration, I gave you a vision of the future as given to Vera Stanley Order, one of
Yes.
early initiates,
Fabulous.
who brought the esoteric teachings to many seeking souls during the time of World War II. She took us on a journey after the Day of Days had become historical fact and the world as we know it had been transformed. Today I'm looking in greater depth at what will or could happen immediately after the Day of Days has occurred. Maitreya would have spoken telepathically to all the family of nearly 8 billion souls who are over the age of 14. We would have all felt the power of his words. It would be like a light has gone on in a dark room as we remember our spiritual home. We would have been given a vision of a future life we could create together. This shared experience is what will sustain us in the coming time. Many who have longed for a different way of being will cast away their fear and uncertainty and join the ranks of those who are already calling for the application of Maitreya's priorities. Plans for feeding the world are already in place. All it takes is the political will to implement them. And I recently was reading about Cuba, and apparently Cuba don't just feed the children that are in poverty, but they make sure that every child is fed and clothed in Cuba. And they were also one of the countries who sent a lot of the medical teams around the world.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic, Shafir. I mean, there's actually dozens of teams that they've sent.
Yes.
Around the place.
And, you know, they're not a rich country, so it does show, doesn't it, that they are actually, you know, they're giving us an
fantastic
example.
work they do.
Yeah.
Maybe another country that we've heard an awful lot of fake news about.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
When people have had the veil of separation removed, they will clamour for no more hunger for any of their brothers and sisters. We will recognise our collective wound of collusion in allowing it to happen. It is estimated that within 3 years, all people could be freed from the blasphemy of starvation in a world of plenty. Of course, there'll be those people who will object. Many will see their privileges undermined and their power over others reduced. Fundamental Christians will be challenged by this new revelation that the Christ is in the world, but he is not the Christ of their belief system. This Christ is indeed the world teacher for everyone, whether they are a believer or not. This applies to all the fundamental religions who have a particular scenario for the second coming of their particular figurehead. Maitreya will be cast as the Antichrist, his advice rejected as utopian and unrealistic. However, a new vision will have been awakened and a leader for all people will have stepped out of the shadows into the light of day. And I think that's what we desperately need at the moment, isn't it? A leader that can unite everyone. Yeah. The power and simplicity of Maitreya's message will cut through the voices that seek to spread confusion and doubt. We will have that shared spiritual experience to sustain us in the choppy waters created by a new revelation. A new hope full of optimism and possibility will have been offered to us. The collective sense of guilt and fear will dissipate as we each realise that we have an important role to play in creating the new world. As Maitreya has said, everyone is needed. No one is too poor, too weak, or unworthy of contributing. And I think for me, you know, that's sort of where I get an emotional response, thinking of all those people who are now in the world who sitting on the streets, begging for money, you know, don't have anywhere to go, just feeling that sense of lack of self-esteem and not having, desperation, and to feel that that self-esteem will be lifted and that they will know that they're important, you know, and that they're part of the family, you know.
And they have a role to play if they, you know, accept it too.
Yes, that's right.
They have a role to play if they get given the chance. Someone talked about an analogy between the Amazon rainforest and humanity. So currently we're chopping down the Amazon rainforest quicker than we understand what it contains.
Yes.
And at the moment we're doing the same with humanity. We are damaging humanity quicker than we know what it contains.
Yes.
Because the person that's homeless on the street, had they been given the opportunity, may have had the creative ability for all sorts of things, but we'll never know.
That's right.
Because that crop has never risen to its full stature.
And that's exactly what I was going to say next.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, I was actually reading your notes.
Because, once guilt and fear have been banished and people feel more secure in their place in the world, and when the sense of support and appreciation is the normal experience for everyone, a new creativity will burst forth. We are children of a creator God, and we only have to look at the beauty of the universe and our own planet to know we have the potential within each of us to create beauty and harmony all around us. Our daily news broadcasts will be reports on the initiatives and achievements of our new creativity as a race. We will inspire and encourage each other to greater good. Beautifying our world and our cities will happen naturally as we harness our creative talents. Mundane jobs will be done by robots, freeing us up to have the time to explore ourselves and our purpose in life. We will enjoy life rather than just survive it. With the pandemic curtailing our travelling experiences and climate chaos invoking a sense of guilt for even wanting to travel and causing more stress to our home planet, the promise of this new world is that travel will be freely available to all. A new energy of light, which Peter, I think you're going to talk about, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Will provide free power, and we'll be able to reach our destinations wherever they are in just a few moments. And I've recently been reading a book by George Adamski called Flying Saucers Have Landed, and he actually gives a really good explanation of how these spaceships and how this technology of light actually power them. Mm-hmm. So it's a really good one too.
Okay.
An older book.
Shall we cover that off at our next program?
Yes, we will do.
Okay.
Just giving people a little pointer.
Yeah.
After the Day of Days, Maitreya will go on a world tour so that everyone will be able to see him. He will introduce the Masters of Wisdom to us, and they will take their places, heading our important institutions like the United Nations. In her book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy, Alice Bailey talks about the Master who will be the adjuster of finances. And considering how much finance dominates our lives and influences every leader's decision, this will be an important and life-changing role for us all. Financial affairs will gradually change to become more of a barter system. Profit will become a thing of the past, and our consumerism will be replaced by creativity and productive living that benefits all. That's a wonderful image, isn't it, to think that it ever could come into pass.
Yeah. In our time?
In our time, hopefully. Maitreya has said that he will create 777 healing wells around the world. This will aid in healing, so our health services will become free and available to all. Death will become something we no longer fear, but plan and prepare for as a special day at the end of our visits to this planet, like a farewell party. There have been many visits to this planet, and no doubt there'll be many more for most of us.
Yeah, I think I'm about halfway.
That's right, yeah. Benjamin Creme has told us that the majority of humanity now stands on the cusp of the first initiation, the birth of the Christ in the heart of man, meaning that the love principle will finally be active in most of us. We often hear now calls to love each other in the prevailing atmosphere of hate and judgment that so many seem enthralled by. Maitreya will take all those ready to the feet of Sanat Kumara, the one we call our Father who art in heaven, whom so many call upon. This is a huge milestone for our planet towards becoming one of the sacred planets of our universe. Mystery schools will open around the world where those ready for initiation will learn about the mysteries of the universe and our place in it. So, listeners, the golden age of Aquarius is just around the corner, if we all do our bit to usher it in.
Thank you, Shafia. We will come back shortly with Peter.
This is the Emergence News on Plains FM. For more information, go to shareinternational.org.
Okay. Really enjoyed that, Shafia. Thank you very much.
That's okay.
I think I've probably got a lot more lifetimes to go than you have. And let's speak to the wisest one of us all. Peter, what have you got for us?
Oh, you're jesting there. Thank you, John, and Shafia there. That's brilliant work there. The light of the sun will become the fuel of the future. It will be clean, without waste, and there will be an inexhaustible supply in every home, in every city in the world. Help is being given to scientists in Russia and the USA by the Space Brothers. This comes from Benjamin Creme's in Maitreya's Mission Volume 3. but we must give up war, as John has said. We have great resources in Ben's book, and look back at his, I'm looking at this book, The Gathering of the Forces of Light, which is one of his later books, and a delightful little book it is too. It's quite a bit smaller than some of the other ones, and quite easy to read. He talks about Wilhelm Reich, who lived from 1897 to 1957, and his discovery of orgone energy, which we now know as etheric energy. And a lot of the technology of light is going to be to do with this etheric energy, which Wilhelm Reich called orgone energy. He was locked up by the FDA in America and wasn't allowed to prove his instruments worked to the FDA. And he died in prison, so to protect the world from cures for all types of disease, including cancer. The New Scientist magazine report that scientists have discovered that space is filled by an unknown radiation that is 6 times stronger than all the known astronomical sources within the frequency band. This energy is what is known as etheric energy, or the orgone of Wilhelm Reich. Benjamin Creme often talks about 4 levels of the etheric energy. And I think our soul is actually at the top one, on level number 1.
The solar angel.
Yes. And of course, there's 7 levels of physical, as Benjamin Creme calls it. And we have the dense physical, we have the liquid, we have the gaseous, and then we have 4 levels of etheric energy. And each of us has an etheric body. And some of us are able to see this etheric energy, and it's possible even to photograph it, isn't it, Sophia?
I think they have done, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
And they have instruments that will actually photograph these. But the Master says all matter is a precipitation of light. And so the field of matter is light precipitated into 7 more or less physical planes. And so we have these 7 levels of physicality.
And they just get finer and finer and finer.
Finer and finer. They're like gases, in actual fact.
Or electricity.
Yes, that's right. And even our nerves are part of the system, receiving the etheric energy from our etheric body as a very fine gas. And this gas works through the various inlets of the of the nervous system. And they're called nadis, I think, aren't they?
And I think the healing will be more on the etheric body once the healing, the
That's
etheric
right.
body, the
Yes.
physical body will naturally follow, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Because if you can heal at the etheric level, it naturally follows that the body will be healed as well, because
The
the
physical
energy
body.
comes in from the higher down to the lower. And so it's like the physical body is the last to know about it,
Yes.
if you like.
Yeah, because it's the densest.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, this energy that these scientists have discovered is what I'm suggesting is probably part of this light technology that we have had predicted by Benjamin Creme to be the new source of energy that will, demonstrate right throughout our new energy, the healing of light and the energy supplied to every home and that sort of thing. Every home will have a device, if you like, to convert the light, this particular aspect of light, into energy that is used in the home. So you may not be able to plug in your current electric, washing machine or electric jug into the same sort of thing, because in the ancient days, in pyramids and that sort of thing, they have found sources of these of light that were different from what our normal, 240 volts, and they were obviously able to use some sort of form of etheric energy. And they've been demonstrated, some of these discoveries, that they had this sort of light, and it was much more subtle.
Yeah.
And not such a bright, dense one that we have now.
So as we go forward after the Day of Declaration, and we have to give up war before the Day of Declaration or after the Day of Declaration, because it's that combination of Day of Declaration and giving up war that brings in the science that Peter's talking about.
Yes, well, I think, Benjamin, the Maitreya will actually tell us what we need to do with regard to war. That, because he's talking directly to our heartfelt inner self, we will actually embrace it more easily than just, it's not just a lecture.
No,
Yeah.
I think we have to sort of move. What's the saying? If you move one step towards Allah, then He'll move 1,000 steps toward. We have to make the first move. We have to show that we're starting to be willing. I think.
We've talked about the Day of Declaration. There's an invitation from the media or from an outpouring from the public. We have this Day of Declaration. We then have to give up war, and then we get to share the goodies, kind of thing. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, I think so, because we'll be less focused. We won't be so dense.
At the moment, we are incredibly destructive.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So you wouldn't give us,
No,
highly advanced
wouldn't give it a toy
technology.
rifle.
No, you wouldn't. Okay. Okay, so let's just wrap up. For the sake of our listeners, we are talking about Day of Declaration, how that's going to change humanity. We're talking about this giving up of war and seeing ourselves as one. And then we're saying that when these things happen, we will become part of this confederation that already exists in the solar system. And that we will then be able to share some of that technology. I just wanted to take our listeners back to where we started and remind them that there is a continuity of teaching. So throughout history, when humanity has reached a major point of crisis, the spiritual hierarchy has sent a teacher to show the way forward. The most well-known of these divine messengers are Krishna, Buddha, Confucius, Jesus, Muhammad. Each of their teachings gave birth to a new religion. Virtually every spiritual tradition now expects the return of their revered teacher to validate the past and to carry on the teachings. In the esoteric tradition, one individual, the world teacher, is seen as the fulfillment of these expectations. The world teacher for the current time is Maitreya, the eldest brother in the human family and head of the spiritual hierarchy. I should say current head of the spiritual hierarchy.
And the Egyptians knew him as the ever-coming one.
Ah, thank you, Shafia. So, preferring to be known simply as the teacher, Maitreya has not come to found a new religion, but to act as a guide and a counsellor for all humanity, regardless of religious affiliation. I also want to point out that we live in a solar system where every planet has a god. We live in a solar system where every planet has a ranking as to its divinity or lack of.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so Shafia, can you finish us off with a message?
Oh, okay.
Did I take you by surprise then? Is that the first time?
So this is called The First Steps by the Master. When Maitreya appears before the world, people will realise that they have known him from before, and that his teaching is not strange or beyond their level of thought. Simple indeed will he be, that all may understand. Precisely, his simplicity will astound. Nevertheless, it will be found also that most people experience what they hear in a new way, as a dawning truth, new and touching them at a deeper level. Simple the ideas may be, but they will resonate in people's hearts and feel fresh and vibrant. Thus will it be. Thus will Maitreya touch the hearts of men, appealing to them to aid themselves by aiding their brothers and sisters across the world. When men hear him, they will ponder deeply on what he says and feel strangely moved by the oft-heard words. Their hearts will respond as hitherto they have not, and a new understanding and urgency will potentize their response. Thus will Maitreya galvanise the peoples of the world to action and change. Those who have stood back will come forward and join the clamour for justice and sharing, freedom and peace. Many, of course, will ignore Maitreya. Many will find his ideas abhorrent and dangerous, or utopian and impossible of accomplishment. Some, more sinister and afraid, will see in him the Antichrist, the embodiment of all their fears. Some would have him crucified forthwith had they had the power. Many will sit quietly on the fence, unable to take a stand for or against. Those who can respond will grow in number and raise their voices for sharing and justice. They will gather round and support him and see him as their leader and mentor, teacher and guide. Thus will form a powerful mass of world public opinion calling for change. More and more governments will find it difficult to resist these demands of the people and will be forced to implement some degree of change. The people will grow in power and their voices potentized by Maitreya. They will grow in strength and clarity of demand. They will call for their spokesman to speak to the world, and the stage will be set for the day of declaration, the first day of the new dawn. The day of declaration, on which for the first time Maitreya will acknowledge his true stature and name, will stand out through history as the turning point in the evolution of mankind. It will be inscribed in the annals of the Day of Days, the beginning of the new, the sanctification of mankind, the portal to the glorious future which awaits humanity. That day is not far off.
All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org. Scorpio Books in Christchurch carries the magazine and some books. And also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.
The opportunity to join our transmission is available Monday and Wednesday evenings and Thursday mornings, which gives us the possibility to do a service meditation in conjunction with Masters.